Political bias at the FBI? No, it can't be. From the Washington Times, top agent exits FBI amid charge of political bias, undermining Hunter Biden probe, according to sources. They say this man was forced out of his post and was escorted out of the building. Whoa. Now that sounds crazy. And over at timcast.com, that's how our writers, our journalists, framed the story. I see this headline from timcast.com saying he's escorted out of the building. And then I'm like, wow, that sounds crazy. So, of course, I'm doing my normal routine. Donald Trump, of course, issues a bold statement saying this guy is corrupt and all these, something to that effect. And we'll read that. And then I read this story from Newsweek about Trump's comments on the matter. And they say, well, according to Fox, he just retired. And being escorted out of the building upon retirement is totally normal. And I thought that was weird. I'm like, when you retire, they escort you out of the building? I mean, maybe, I guess. That does sound kind of weird. You know, like, wouldn't you just grab your stuff, walk out and say, bye, everybody? And then I remembered something very important, my friends. Something very, very important. Well, Fox News is not NewsGuard certified. They're not credible. I can't use them as a source because NewsGuard says no. So, for all of those crazy lefty establishment shills who want to argue this isn't the case, Fox News, which claims this FBI agent who is accused of running interference in the investigation into Hunter Biden, they say he resigned. Okay, well, unfortunately for you, Fox News is not a credible source and I can't use them. So I'm going to use the Washington Times, which says outright, the Washington Times learned that Timothy Thibault, an assistant special agent in charge, was forced to leave his post. The information came from two former FBI officials familiar with the situation. Now, they go on to say, it is not clear whether Mr. Thibault left on his own accord or was forced out of the bureau. That, I believe, is about the escorting out of the building. Like if they were saying, you're out, go. And they said, okay, fine. And then he walked out. Apparently, he was escorted out, which is normal, according to Fox News. But we're not gonna use them as a source. No, I'm sorry, we can't do that. This is huge, my friends. This is what we've been talking about with evidence of corruption at the FBI. Donald Trump has now come out slamming the FBI in a Truth Social post after special agent leaves the bureau. And I just want to point out one thing. I wish Donald Trump did Truth Social while he was president, because you see how the media is forced to address what he is saying on his platform. That would have driven tons, millions of people to his platform. It still is, which is good. And maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe in the end, Trump will end up building up Truth Social and creating a counter censorship culture, something like that. But Trump is roasting the FBI over this, and rightly so. The New York Times has called for the arrest, the indictment of Donald Trump, saying he is not above the law. Okay, not above the law. But when you have an FBI agent that is accused of running interference to protect the Bidens, when you have the FBI going after the people who had the Ashley Biden diary, keep in mind, she's not a federal employee. She is just a private citizen who left a book at a house. This is the craziest thing. I've been talking to some lawyers about some FBI stuff, and I mentioned this before. When dealing with serious crimes, they say, like, I'll just put it this way. For the FBI to get involved in a crime, it has to be serious. And you take a look at the swattings we've gone through, and they're just like, So you mean to tell me that Marjorie Taylor Greene, she gets swatted 3 times. We get swatted 9 times, plus several, I don't want to call them swattings because they were bomb threats. So we're looking at like 12 incidents where the police are forced to come out and across state lines, and we can't get anything done. Okay, you know what? Maybe they're secretly working on solving the problem of who's swatting Marjorie Taylor Greene and who's swatting us, because it sounds like it may be a similar group. Maybe. But they haven't talked to me about anything. So I kind of don't think that's the case, at the very least. Yet they go after 2 people who have the Biden diary, of course, because they are the secret police for the Democrats and the uniparty establishment. That's what they do. There is no law enforcement for you. We're going to read what Donald Trump had to say. But my friends, before we get started, if you would like to support our work, there's a link in the description below to Bandcamp, and you can pick up our latest single from Timcast Records, Only Ever Wanted, for 69 cents. We were pushing Apple Music, but now pushing Bandcamp because a lot of people were like, I don't know how to buy on iTunes. And I'm like, okay, fair point. I don't care about iTunes. Bandcamp is another way that you can buy the song, 69 cents, super easy. And in doing so really helps us. We're hoping that we can get enough sales to actually chart. If you want to support our music, if you like the music, some people say they don't like it, they buy it anyway. Well, it is what it is. You know, support our music as we try to launch a music division because we want to build culture. The goal of all of this is, for one, I write music. I've always written music. I've always published music. This is not the first song I've ever published, just the latest song I've published. Will of the People was first, and we have tons of other songs throughout my life. But we're going to be signing other bands so that we can create a space where people aren't scared. If they want to speak up at work and they say, we're going to fire you, say, I can go work here. I can go work there. Similar to what the Daily Wire is doing. So click the link in the description below. Just 69 cents. Hopefully you guys can support us. Let's read the story from Newsweek. Former President Donald Trump lashed out at the FBI after reports emerged that Timothy Thibault, an FBI assistant special agent in charge who was involved with the Hunter Biden laptop investigation, had retired from the Bureau. They go to mention Fox News and all that stuff. I'm not going to read the Fox News comments because they're not NewsGuard certified. On Monday, Trump reacted to the News on Truth Social website commenting, the fired agent who was just escorted out of the FBI headquarters is the person who got the FBI to do a raid on a home, Mar-a-Lago, that has stirred the world and created anger and hostility toward the FBI and DOJ, the likes of which have perhaps never been seen in our country before. They're going to say the special agent in charge of the unprecedented and unnecessary raid and break-in on Mar-a-Lago, who concealed the partisan nature of the evidence to secure the FBI's approval to open an investigation into the 45th president in the first place, was also involved in hiding and suppressing from the public and the media the laptop from hell, the 2020 presidential election scam, and so much more. Fox News said that, contrary to Trump's assertion, Thibault was not involved in this month's FBI raid on Mar-a-Lago at any level. Hold on there, Newsweek. I can't just take your word for it. You may be NewsGuard certified, which means you're credible, but you are citing an uncredible source. So, no. I'm not gonna play that game. This is the world that the mainstream media wanted. NewsGuard is the official source, and if they say Fox News ain't credible, then sorry, their word is not law. And the Washington Times says he was forced out. So, fired, Trump would more likely be correct in that regard. Thank you, NewsGuard. Thank you for clarifying that for us. The Washington Times reports a senior FBI official in the Bureau's Washington field office has abruptly resigned after coming under congressional scrutiny for suspected political bias in handling the investigation of Hunter Biden's laptop computer. Oh, well, they say he resigned, right? Well, hold on. The Washington Times learned that Timothy Thibault, an assistant special agent in charge, was forced to leave his post. The information came from the two former FBI officials familiar with the situation. Okay, there's a lot to try and understand with what's going on here. I think the FBI is crooked. I think this guy was withholding information. I think the accusation is that the evidence against Trump came from a leftist source, a political organization, and it was being used against him. We know that with like the P-tape narrative and the Steele dossier. So how is that surprising to anybody? But let's read. They say, Mr. Thibault was seen exiting the Bureau's elevator on Friday. He was escorted by 2 or 3 headquarters-looking types, according to eyewitness accounts provided to one of the former officials. It is not clear whether Mr. Thibault left on his own accord or was forced out of the Bureau. The 25-year FBI veteran was on leave for at least a month over revelations about political statements he made while leading the public corruption unit. Okay, it really is. Let's totally be honest. I don't know about Fox News or whatever. It's hard to break this down. What's really happening? This is a murky story. Was this guy fired? Did he just retire? Is escorting someone totally normal? I will start from this point. He was on leave for a month. That doesn't sound like he's choosing to go. But maybe what happened was, after evidence of political bias emerged, they said, we're putting you on leave until we can sort this out. And then after a month, he says, you know what? I'm done with this. I quit. But is that not still being forced out? If I want to give the guy the benefit of the doubt, is that you're put on leave, you're not being able to work, and then finally you just snap under pressure? Listen, when a company wants to fire someone they can't fire, they move them to the mailroom, they move them to the basement, they put them in a broom closet, and they say, we're not firing you. This is just your new conditions. And then eventually the person says, okay, I get it. I don't want to work here. Now, you can argue it's retaliation or whatever, but I got to tell you, Based on the information we have between Fox News and the Washington Times, it seems like this guy put a smudge on the Bureau, bad, is causing very serious problems. And so they found a way to axe him. You need to understand as well that it's extremely difficult to fire federal officials. So probably what happened is they said, we want your resignation. You ever wonder why they say that? I expect your resignation on my desk. Like, just fire the guy. You can't. That's it. You can't. If Trump could have just fired people, he clearly would have. He did the Schedule F thing, where he was like, I'm making it easier to fire you guys. I think what we have here is legit. And what we have following this is actually quite scary. The psychopathy, however you pronounce it, of the New York Times is haunting. Donald Trump is not above the law, writes the editorial board. Here we go. The New York Times editorial board. They want Donald Trump arrested. Yeah, okay. What if I were to tell you that people thought a civil war was coming? You'd be like, sure, Tim, we've heard this one before. It is frustrating, you know. August 30th from The Guardian. More than 40% of Americans think civil war likely within a decade. Yeah, I certainly think so. You know that. You know, it's a hard job. It really, really is. Because you've got, it's brutal. It is absolutely brutal to read this stuff all day, every day. That an FBI agent was corrupt, that he's forced out of his position. He was targeting the president. We have 6 years of corruption in how they went after Donald Trump with everything they did. And then you get it's nothing but hate all day, every day. You know, people are ready to tear each other's throats out, no matter who you are, no matter what side you're on. I can read you the news. I can try and break down the sources. I can try and figure out what's going on. You have Trump derangement syndrome. These people are completely unwilling to listen to reason and read about what really is happening. They would prefer a happy lie to the truth. And these people have derangement syndrome. They are afflicted. You know, Trump derangement syndrome doesn't cut it. I'm trying to call them the afflicted from now on because they feel like zombies to me. They get bitten by the zombie mind virus, and all of a sudden, they can't handle reality. Sam Harris, look at this guy. Hunter Biden could have the corpses of children in his basement. Bro, you're a zombie. You are literally a zombie. I don't know, man. I'm not pessimistic about where we're headed. Look, this guy gets ousted. That's good news. I mentioned over and over in the primaries that are being won every day. But it doesn't mean there's not going to be chaos. I'm looking at these videos, these people on the left cheering for Antifa, walking around fully masked like terrorists with rifles. Marjorie Taylor Greene getting swatted. We're getting swatted. And I got to tell you, man, the right is fractured. The culture war right, the liberty faction, the pro-America faction is totally fractured. And it's just, it is absolute chaos. And while I think freedom is winning, it's like, dude, it's really difficult to handle this level of stress. No joke. But for me, it's just been getting worse and worse. The news about this, I mean, you know, watching what's going on. To the point where, yeah, another story is coming out saying there could be a civil war. Lindsey Graham is saying there will be riots in the streets if Trump is indicted. I don't think so. But the New York Times is now saying it. I mean, let me read a little bit of this. Mr. Trump's unprecedented assault on the integrity of American democracy requires a criminal investigation. The disturbing details of his post-election misfeasance, meticulously assembled by the January 6th committee, leave little doubt that Mr. Trump sought to subvert the Constitution and overturn the will of the people. It's just getting spit on. That's what the New York Times is doing. They're insane people. That's it. I can come on, you know, I'll put it this way. It's like trying to knock down a skyscraper with a ball-peen hammer. It is difficult when you see how the establishment machine lies. The lies and the manipulation. They tell people things like this, and we know it's not true because we've actually looked. But the problem is the average person doesn't look. And how do you reach the average person? Through culture. They're not interested in reading a New York Times op-ed. Only the wingnut left psychos are. And they're going to read this with glee and bang the table and scream, indict Trump. Half of them know they're lying, but it doesn't matter. Half of them don't know and just believe it. Sam Harris is a good example of the psychosis afflicting the elites. When he's like, I don't care if Hunter Biden had the corpses of children in his basement, there's nothing on that laptop that would have changed my mind. And it's like all of the corruption we learn about Joe Biden, how he's trying to destroy this country. And you're like, yeah, Trump University was worse. They're just zombies. I see that level of zealotry and I feel like we can't compete with it. And the right's not unified. They're split between DeSantis and Trump. And while there is a major, net positive in seeing the victories of many people on the right, it's just, man, is it brutal day by day dealing with this and just crossing your fingers and hoping, dredging, trawling through the muck and the mire will result in some kind of positive outcome. It's brutal. That's all I can really say. That, I don't know how I go up against the New York Times or CNN, MSNBC, and these other networks combined. But I feel like it's a grain of sand being added to the heap, and we are making our way through. But I got to wonder, when there are so many people who are unwilling to stand up, speak up, there are so many people who are just outright whispering, I agree with you, but I won't say anything. And I'm just like, what do we do to finally get people to say we will not stand for a corrupt Federal Bureau of Investigation? It has always been this way as long as I've been alive. What will it take for people to just do something? And what I mean by do something, to clarify for all the psychotic leftists, is to speak up. I know a lot of people do. Maybe many of you, they're saying like we do. I know, I'm not saying you don't. I'm saying for those of us that are willing to put our faces out there and say something, what about everybody else? What really, really pisses me off? The celebrities that I know, the rock stars, the pro skaters who are like, I agree with you, but I won't say anything. And then, the Daily Wire is pushing really hard to build culture. We are too at Timcast. That's why we're doing music. I don't have the means to make big movies. That's the big budgets like the Daily Wire does. We do have the means to produce music. The whole budget on that music video we produced was only a few grand. And the song itself was, again, still only a few grand. Just took a little while, and we do our best. We got to build parallel economies, and we got to build a parallel culture. That's what we have to do. And I don't have all the answers, man. I just watched Tom McDonald's The Biggest Industry Screw Over. Because I was mentioning the other day that, like, Tom McDonald, with as big as he is, he should be Billboard Hot 100 #1. But he's not. And how it, they show all his songs and all his albums, and they're like, doesn't cut it. And I'm like, dude, it's because they need to control culture. Because all this comes secondary. They lie, they cheat, they steal, and they own the culture. And that's why people won't speak up. I was talking to a pro skater, and he's a Trump supporter. It's crazy, too, because you wouldn't think it. California pro skater. Trump supporter. I was like, bro, you got millions of followers. Speak out. People, they listen to you. And he said, I'd lose everything. I can't do it. I would lose my job. I'd lose everything. And then I'm like, then you've told me right there what matters more to you. Your comfort and security matters more than your community and your country. And that's okay if that's the case. I'm not ragging on you for it. I'm just saying that's what you've shown. Fine. So I saw that and I said, how do we make those changes? We've got to create a space outside of this in the cultural arena. Otherwise, they will never allow a Donald Trump to be president. They will never allow a Ron DeSantis to be president. They will block you every step of the way and make sure that they gut and destroy you. Look at that Abercrombie and Fitch ad. You see it the other day? The moribundly obese woman? No, I don't mean morbidly obese. I mean moribundly. What I mean to say is, look, when you look at morbid obesity, and I'm not trying to be mean to fat people. That's not the point. I'm actually trying to be compassionate. When you look at morbid obesity, these are people who are, destroying their health and are on the verge of, serious catastrophe. Moribundly obese is when they're quite literally on their deathbed, like from their weight. They are on the verge of dying. And there's you look at people who are fat and you're like, they're morbidly obese. But this woman, her pants were being used as a hammock for her stomach. And they're propping this up. This country is being gutted and eroded. And you have psychotic individuals like this FBI agent. And here's the problem. Our culture is fractured, gutted, and being ripped apart. The culture, you had Lizzo on the VMAs talking about how she's oppressed. It's like, dude, until we can get regular people to talk about this and to feel like if they do, their lives won't be destroyed, none of this will change. Fight an uphill battle. Voting is good. We got to go vote. But here's just my main point. And I'm stuck on it. I'm sorry. I am. We need a parallel economy. We're building it. Dan Bongino created parallel economy. We at timcast.com, we are utilizing that because we want to create an industry where we can compete with the cult. And then eventually the cult will cease to exist because we're more fun. I look at all this stuff, man, and I'm like, I don't think people are going to riot if Trump is indicted. And so what do? The right does not want to go out with ARs and masks like Antifa does. What we need is just a tide of culture to say you are not relevant anymore. It's hard. Maybe it's not possible. I don't know. You know, they're saying that Republicans are expected to win, but day by day, the Democrats are gaining in the polls. Joe Biden's approval rating is skyrocketing despite all of this. Why? Because the left owns culture. Imagine if Marvel came out with a TV show and the narrative was that communism was bad and that Trump was good. And that was wow. You think? Taylor Swift has a song that quite literally promotes a nonprofit for LGBT, issues. I'm not opposed to that. That's fine. I think she can do whatever she wants. But I'm just telling you, that's how they own culture. They push politics in everything they do. It's worked in a lot of ways. But I look at all this stuff now and I say, my friends, the enemy is routed. So, I don't know, man. Here's what's stuck in my mind. What's stuck in my mind is that I've been talking about this stuff nonstop for years, and it feels like we're just chipping away. And there are some gains, but then you realize, like, the Daily Wire is right. You got to make movies. You got to take that over. And then you look at Tom McDonald and how Billboard, not Billboard necessarily, but the data collection service cut them out. That's what they're truly afraid of. And that's what I think the focus has got to be. So, whatever, man. This is a difficult job. And I'll just put it that way. It's really, really tough. And it feels like the thing that's most important is the hardest thing to accomplish. I don't think that we are the best in terms of making culture. I just know that we have to. Because we can shout out Scott Pressler, tell you to register to vote, but voting only goes so far. Look at John Roberts, who's supposedly a conservative justice, but he was ready to keep Roe v. Wade. Now, I'm not saying that because I oppose Roe v. Wade or whatever, or I'm pro-life. I'm saying that because even conservatives at the highest level will bend the knee to Hollywood. That's insane. There's got to be pushback. This is big. And we can see a fracture in the establishment political narrative, which, okay, fine. We got to do more. So I'll shout out the song that we've got. But I'd much rather just see Tom McDonald at number one. Because he's way better than we are. Hands down. He's been doing it longer. He's got everything is just better than we do. Fine. Guys, buy his music. Listen to his music. I'm going to shout him out because, people think that my goal with the stuff we are doing is literally just because we want to be famous rock stars or something. And it's just so mind-numbingly annoying. No, we want to make culture and we want to push back. We want to take over their spaces. But that can be accomplished with Tom McDonald as well in the Daily Wire. So I want to shout out anybody who's doing that. Because then, when we own the institutions and the news outlets, we can put out an article that doesn't say Donald Trump is not above the law. We can put out an article saying the FBI is corrupt and they are not above the law. It is not Donald Trump who did anything wrong. I'm sure there's some things you can be upset about him over, upset with him over. But so long as they have these things, they're going to keep pushing it. And regular people will vote against their own interests because they don't know. You must meet people where they are. I'll tell you what I'm saying. Preaching to the choir ain't solving anything. That's just it. We go on Timcast IRL. We get 500,000 views plus or whatever. We get 1 million total views. We don't trend. We are suppressed. We put out a music video. Oh, we're trending in less than a day because we meet people where they are, but also because YouTube isn't suppressing that. They'll probably end up suppressing it like they do to Tom McDonald, but we got to push back. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.